Alright guys, let's pick up where we left off. Welcome back. Yeah, this is the fourth of, 4 videos. And so if you didn't see the first two and you're a beginner, go back to the first two. Very good information. Teaches you a lot of basics about bevels and modifiers and how to work the geometry. And then we do our block out in video 3. And then we're just going to throw the arms on this and do the second iteration of the mech, which is going to be detailing. The first one's block out, and then the third one will be more high mesh details. And so in this one, I'm just going to keep it super simple. You can come over here to the add a cube and go add a cylinder, and just left click and hold anywhere. Hold down the shift key, and that'll keep it straight up on the scale. Let go of the left mouse first, and then you can kind of bring this out, and then you can add a little more resolution to this if you want. I'm just going to keep everything around 64 so it's good geometry. Then you come back up here and select the cursor or selection box. Now you can feel free to scale this up a little bit. Doesn't matter if it's going through the mesh. Go ahead and shade it smooth, and I'm going to go ahead and auto smooth that. Let's go into edit mode and grab one of these faces, or technically the only face you got. Hit 1 on the number pad. What I'm going to do is just going to bring this out into a little arc, and we're going to use the spin tool to do that. I'm going to be on the y-axis. Very easy. It's going to, as a general rule, wherever you put the 3D cursor, that's where it's going to begin to spin, and that acts as an axis point for it to follow this path. So if I just start spinning it like this, then that's about what I get. Okay? And I should actually be able to hold control. Yeah, and I can snap it to increments, if you will, maybe degrees, and just let it go. And I'll go back to the selection box. I like what I've got, so I'm going to add a little bit more geometry because I don't want rectangular geometry. Try to keep it nice and even, looking good. And all of that actually looks really nice. So now just press 1. Select any one of these in the center, Shift A, drop in a cube. Okay, well that didn't really land where I wanted, so I'm going to grab the 3D cursor and put that back to the origin, and I'm going to grab the selected and put it to the 3D cursor. And then I can hit G and Z respectively, and G and X to bring it over. And I'm going to zoom in and keep it in the orthographic view of 1. Control Shift X. Spacebar twice till it says circle. I'll hit W. I'm going to take up this and left click right here. I'll bring this down. Okay, so I just have to make it 6 for the cut. And I think that will work nicely. There we go. Yeah, so you just fix these things in a couple seconds. You don't have to get too worried about being a perfectionist. And I can hold Shift and R for the rotation and just gently rotate that until it looks something like that. And I want the gun shifted a little bit further forward because that's how this mech ultimately looks. The weapons are always a little bit further forward. And this one overall is a little too big. So bring it down in size and potentially bring this down and just match it up until you get it right where you want it. And then you can Shift right click these, Shift right click any object with a mirror, Control C, and copy those modifiers. And there you go. So now the first iteration is done. You can select everything, Shift D, and right click to drop it, G and X. Let's move it over, M, put it in new collection, and we just call that backup mech 1. Hit enter a couple times. Put the hit the check mark up here, and it's going to take it out of the active hierarchy. Okay, so you don't have it show up in your render. And now what I can do is grab all these leg joints here. Let's see, I'll just grab this to start, G and X, and kind of realign that back up. And we're going to chop the feet and do some other things for detail, but the very first thing that we can do is let's kind of start from the middle and work our way out. And we've got this neat little array right here. So we can actually make an array real quick. And I'll just, the cursor is at world origin, so that's fine. for now. And what I'll do is I'll snap one of these. Let's just get it right about here. Hold down Shift, let go of the mouse, bring it out just a touch. Go back to the selection box, G and Y, and kind of bring that out just a little bit. All right, very good. So now let's take the 3D cursor and bring it up here. So Shift S and bring it to the selected. And now I want to drop in an empty. I get a planes access. Try not to scale it if you don't have to, but if you have to scale it so you can select it easier, just make sure to apply the scale. And now we'll grab our cylinder. Let's come over to the modifiers and let's throw an array modifier on that. And what we want to do is have an object offset. The object is going to be our empty. And then you could bring the count up a few times. It's going to show up in some weird places until we get everything fixed. I'm going to actually apply the scale and the rotation here, even though I probably shouldn't have to. And what I want to do is put the origin to this object to the 3D cursor. And so now this is going to be a little bit of a different story. So if I hit R to rotate this, it will actually rotate. And it is off just a little bit. All right, so I want to actually just come into the modifier here, and I'm going to zero out the offset. And I think that should work for us now. So let's rotate that. Very nice. And now I'll bring up the count. I think 8's going to work out pretty nice. That'll look good. There we go. So that gives us, and this won't show up in the render, but you can hide it so it won't show up in the render anyways, no matter what you do. So that actually looks pretty good. I want to shade that smooth and auto smooth that. Looks very nice. And we can add a little bit of geometry to that, and it's going to do it for all of them. We don't want to apply any of these modifiers until we've got all these little finer things done. So we could maybe even save that for the last iteration, and I will bring a nice chamfer in right there. And let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got. There's also a centerpiece with a couple of cuts, and this is a little bit more of a bulb actually. So let's see what we can do with that. Control middle mouse will kind of scan out, which is very nice. Now I think I could just add a few loop cuts here. Grab the face, O for proportional editing, G and Y. And where is my proportional? Here we go. And you can add some neat shapes to this. Maybe something like that. And I don't really like all this extra loop in here, so I'll dissolve that edge. I think that doesn't look too bad. I'm going to go ahead and scale that down. Just kind of get that shape a little better. Let's throw a loop right there. Keep the geometry looking good. All that looks nice. All right, so before we do any cutting on this, let's kind of take a look at it. We can actually drop a cylinder in. So I'll go ahead and drop in a cylinder. Scale it down, rotate it, should be on the X at 90. And let's bring that forward. Just a touch, shade it smooth, auto smooth it. And let's check out our reference image. There's a couple of cuts on there. It looks like there's a neat little inset, so I really want to grab this. And what I can do is just grab this face, which doesn't have any influence right now. I can just grab that, and let's put some loop cuts in. And then I can go ahead and grab that face and extrude that back just a touch. And let's go to edge select, put a little chamfer right there. so it just sits so much nicer, and I like that. It looks good. And so this can be scaled down a good bit. Apply the scale G and Y and just kind of bury it in there a little bit. And maybe scale that. Put a couple of loops in there. And this might get scaled a touch more for our cuts. Kind of like that. Apply the scale. Now I'll grab this piece and I want to go straight to rectangle here. And I'll make those little cuts, which apparently are straight through. And I'll just symmetrize this. Actually, you can throw a mirror modifier on there if you just want to get crazy. And let's mirror the center piece, and we'll pull, let's see, you can bisect that. There we go. And yeah, I think you can get away with that. And then just apply that so you don't have funky geo. And it does apparently put that line in there just like symmetrizing, so I'll dissolve that edge. And we got this couple of bullion cuts, which could definitely be cleaned up. Not too worried about that. But that kind of gets the head detail. And it does seem like there would be some, I hit 7 because I am having trouble with the zoom there, and that gives you an ability to get kind of back in it. So what I'll do is I'm going to select, I'll select this inner ring here. Just want to extrude that back a little bit. Go to edge, select for both of these, and Control B and give it a very slight chamfer. And I'm going to grab this entire loop right here, and I want to just, let's see, I don't want to do that. Control Z. I'm going to put a loop right here. Yeah, it looks like I need to have a cut right there. That's annoying. And I'll just place this and I'll bevel that. And then I'll extrude that back in a little bit. And see if we can get away with a little inset. And then bring it back out. And that ought to catch the light really nice and give it some extra definition. Not too bad. And it did kind of flatten that area out. So, you know, just kind of keep those things in mind. Let's see. So I would hit K, C, and then A. Oops, let's not do that. K and A and C. And enter. And I just want to check that, come back around. And yeah, so that added the loop back all the way through. What I can do is come in the middle here and dissolve that edge because we don't need it. So that was a little bit of an error, and it looks like, if I'm right, probably kind of fix this G and Z with a little proportional editing perhaps. There we go. And then hit the Z for that one. It's going to be really touchy because I've got those cuts. So you wouldn't want to try to go in and fix all that stuff once you've already got those insets. Those are pretty indicative of you're kind of done working on that portion of it. And that'd be kind of tough to bevel this thing as well. I'm just going to / back out. It's all about what's closest to the camera, any which way you look at it. So I want to grab, and let's look at the reference here. We can add some basic details here. We've got, there's really not enough showing. Okay, so we've got clip, and we've got some other cuts here, and we've got some what looks like pivot pieces for the arm. So we can come in here and just kind of take a little bit of liberty and do it the way we want. And actually, before I get too crazy with it, I do want to grab this and scale it on the y-axis a little bit. Bring that in. Maybe a touch more. Something like that should be fine. You can probably get a better view of it if you hide the weapon for this moment. Alright, that's not too bad. Scale that to get that size back there. Maybe scale it down, scale it up, apply scale. Looks pretty good. So I'll go ahead and add, let's see, 1, 2, yeah, it's pretty even. So I'll extrude these along nominals, hold down Shift. I think it just gives it a little bit of bump. It just gives it a little bit more realism. I like that. I like how that looks. But there's a lot of ridge kind of work going on here. I wouldn't mind softening that up just a touch if I can. I'll turn up proportional editing off. See if I can scale some of this down. Maybe smooth it out a little bit. Maybe disappear it altogether and bring it down. Doesn't look too bad. And the light should hit that pretty decent. Yeah, and that's the general idea. We definitely want to see how the light is going to hit our objects. Show a little bit of definition. Catch the light, catch a shadow. All right, so let's bring the arm into play a little bit here. And I am feeling like go to face select and select these three at least, and let's see how this looks. And try to keep the shape language going. I'm actually going to scale these a little touch here on the y-axis and kind of match that up. I think I can do, let's see, probably gonna have to play around with this first. Let's see if I can just rotate that a touch, maybe another touch. Go back to face select and grab this one and extrude. Well, let's extrude this one along nominals. And still a little off. It's hard to see. Just rotate it with shift on. Go back to face. Extrude along nominals. And something funky going on there, but might be able to get away with that. Yeah, it's not too bad. And so that gives it like a little lead in, if you will. And then I can loop this a couple of times and potentially bevel that and extrude. Now let's put that inside a little bit. Looks good. So you got like a little ridge point going in. Maybe rotate that just a touch. All right, so now we can kind of mess around with the chest a little bit. Do is Shift D, right click, drop that, scale it on the Y. Let's apply the scale. See what we can get away with here. I'm going to Shift right click here and Control minus, which gives it a Boolean cut. Let's see if I can scale that. I want to bring it back. Come back. Let's see, do I need to apply the scale here first and then Control minus? So let me scale that on the X with Shift on just a little bit. There we go, got it back. We can do, well, let's go to the modifiers here because I know the Boolean is at the bottom. That's going to cause all kind of problems. Mirror modifier needs to come up to the top. Let's make sure there's a bevel, there's a mirror. I have two mirrors for some reason. Don't need that one. And I will apply that Boolean. Let's hide the cutter and hide that and then check out our cut. Okay, so it was not deep enough. So I'll just bring everything back, bring the Boolean back, and I'll take the cutter, just the cutter, there we go. And let's G and Y and bring that back a little bit more. And we'll scale it on the Y. Okay, that looks pretty good. I like it. I'm going to grab here and I can disappear the boolean and the cutter. I don't need it. I'm just going to delete it. And so now I've got this piece, which I would say fits absolutely perfect. And we can modify these corners a touch. So I'm going to jump into edge select. I'll grab these two edges, G and Z. Wait, do I have proportional editing on? Okay, so let me put a loop in. Let's see, I should still be able to put a loop in here and there because we're going to cut this anyway, so we're going to need some loops. So it's now, let's grab these edges, G and Z, kind of bring them up. Should bevel nicely later on. What that'll do is give us that chest piece, and this will be definitely cut out, so it'll have nice definition to it. And always, you know, you come back over and check your lighting every once in a while. Doesn't hurt. And it's always good to just kind of play with the contrast instead of playing with the strength of your lights. And I always kind of wonder what we got going on over here. Oh yeah, it's just a little gap. Definitely G and Z. Probably just fill that. I'm going to fix that up real soon. So yeah, actually just had to bring that up. Anytime you see that, you always check it. You check it in the rendered view, and it's going to tell you a lot about what's going on. All right, the feet were literally just a pretty basic block out. I'm just going to hide that for now and hide these pieces, and kind of thinking to jump in here, and let's take K, C, enter. Okay, that's good. So I'm going to jump into wireframe. Nope, don't want to do that. I want to just select this entire piece here, X, and I want to delete those faces. And boom, delete those edges. And I'm going to come back over. Let's see. No, I just want to delete these faces. There we go. Perfect. So now I'll grab this entire loop here, F2 fillet. Looks good. So now you can start bringing this down, and we'll extend it because the mech in and of itself definitely was not tall enough. Let's parent some stuff here. Let's grab all this. Let's grab this, and I think I'm holding the wrong button. And then shift right click this pen, control P, or just press P, doesn't matter, and parent the object keep transform. So if I rotate this on the X axis, it'll bring it down, and then we can start working on those feet being a little bit bigger. And then could rotate this one as well. Let's just let's clear the parent for that. Actually, I want to see if we can just overwrite the parent. Yeah, good. Okay, so it'll do that, and then this piece can just scale out on the Z a little bit more. Rotate that on the X, perfectly fine. G and Z, can even bring it down a little bit. There we go, and he'll look a little bigger, a little meaner. All right, so what I was thinking is that these feet are pretty terrible, so I was just kind of messing with them, and I did cut a little boolean here with the carver tool. I didn't cut this piece. You could do that if you want. What I'm actually going to do is leave those pins in there and Control J, join that for now. And then I'll just move the origin point back to the geometry. Let's just scale them up a little, apply the scale. Give them a big pair of shoes for now. I think that's fine. Don't have to get too fancy. That's not going to be the main focus of detail, and it's hardly going to be in. Like, I would put a lot more attention into it if that was going to be the main thing. It's like if I'm looking up at this, and this is my camera angle, and then I've got my little human scale guy in here. And then I drop him in. You can see just about how tall it's going to be. And of course, I just want to bring him down to something like this, so it makes it look really massive looking up. That's going to be our finishing angle anyways. And I would put more, and I'll put a little top details in, but that's going to be it for the feet. I'm not really going to do too much more with those. And I do want to mirror these weapons over, so I will actually join those. And we'll go ahead and put a mirror modifier on. We'll select the torso piece as usual. So that's starting to look pretty good. And if you are happy with the array, you could apply that just to kind of get rid of it, so it's not going to be a problem. Make sure that mirror modifier isn't there going to give you a problem either. And if all of these are where you want them, you could Control J and join those as one mesh, as long as all the bevels are the same size. That way you're not moving something and having it get terribly out of place. All right, guys, let's go through the mech. And we'll add some geometry to the areas that don't have enough. So something like this right here, you definitely add the geometry. Don't want it to be stretched out rectangles. Going for the quad. That looks pretty good. And you can do that. See how it's starting to clean it up. Just be aware you're going to start losing some of the curvature the more geo you add. So if you really liked the way the curve was, then it's going to slightly start to flatten that out, but you do need that geometry. So let's go through every little piece in here and see what we can do. Something like that looks pretty good. That looks good. Couple here, so it's all very square. Looks really nice. Go to the next piece. Go ahead and add the geo in here, maybe not that much. Couple pieces here. One there. Oop, let go. Couple there, and two right there. And that will match up on the mirror on the other side. And see, don't look like we did anything here, so let's add geometry here. Probably about 30 to 40 cuts would be good enough for that. It's a little bit higher resolution. Go ahead and add them in here. I know it's very redundant, but you got to do this. We don't have a bunch of stretching and have a garbage looking setup when we're done. And for the next iteration, you really got to have extra geometry anyways. So if we plan on doing anything else with the feet, and we can always up this, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to bring it down, but definitely easy enough. Put about 3, put 4 loops in there. You can always add more, but taking it away properly is going to be a little bit more difficult. So let's see. It's going to look good. What do we got going on here? Yeah, that's just the inside curve. That's perfectly fine. Just going to put 2 inside each one of these little areas. I think that's pretty good. This one should be fine. Could probably square this up a little bit more here. And just Control R, left click real quick and get out of there. And then right click if you kind of move it by accident. Actually, Control Z back. I want to put 2 in right here. And then for the top piece, I think we got that. And let's see about the arms. Did add some. This is much lower resolution, so you could add some here. Gonna need it. Put in about 3 there. All right, we're starting to look good. Put 2 in right here. Try to match it all up as much as possible. Let's see about this one. No, that one's fine. And pretty sure I already looked at that. What about this little piece here? Throw a few loops in there, about 4 or 5, / back out, because that's what I'm using. And then there's this piece. I'm not going to do anything with the center piece yet, because that's going to need to take on some shapes. So I may be using the knife tool to just kind of cut into that and do something different. And so I think that's pretty good. Don't forget, create your save points. And it's starting to look a little T-Rex-ish. Okay, it's pretty good. The guns are still a little too big, perhaps, so could grab this area and maybe bulk it up, or scale it on the X just a little bit, and then change the size of the arms. But we'll figure all that out a little bit later on. That's going to complete it for now. So now you've already got the very first look. That's a second iteration. And I will actually, let's move my guy out and just delete him. I'm going to hit A for all, just grab it, Shift D, make a copy, G and X, move him over. In fact, that's where the other one is, so if they come back, I don't want them to be in the same spot. That would be terrible. I'll make a new collection, and I will call this Backup 2. And what did I call the first one? Backup Mech 1, so we'll just call this Backup Mech 2. And that is our second iteration. Thanks for watching, guys. Stick it out. Some of this stuff is absolutely boring and tedious, but it's necessary so that later during the process of texturing everything else, your geometry is even, your bevels are even, you're joined where you should be. You know, you'll have things parented so you can pose them. All right, guys, that is it for now. I'm going to grab Backup Mech 2, disappear it, and I will see you guys in the next video, where we will do the third iteration with high detail, and then we will begin to texture this thing and make it look awesome. Thanks for watching. Smash that subscribe, smash that like button on the way out. See ya in the next one.